Andrew, what a great speaker. That's just a real treat. So thanks again to you, Andrew. I just want to make a quick point. I don't know if you know this, but Pierre Poilievre has started a filibuster in the We Investigation Committee, and he did it by suggesting that we should pay Justin Trudeau a speaker fee, and the Liberals thought it was a negotiation. So. I do want to make one little correction to Andrew Lawton. He said that this is the first time that Alberta's ever taken anything back from Quebec and Ontario in terms of speaking time. I just want you to note that we're a sponsor, and so, as usual, Alberta had to pay a check to get this. And so this was a little bit of an equalization, but what I also noticed is that having paid for the time, he took it back and went 5 minutes over. So one of the things I want to do is just a quick introduction of Modern Miracle Network. A lot of people ask me, that's an interesting name. Are you an evangelical group, or are you doing something to help children? And my answer is absolutely yes. We're a group that believes that the modern miracle of society today comes from technology and energy, and that the oil and gas industry in particular has been an enormous part of contributing to the modern miracle that we all live and that we all participate in terms of quality of life, healthcare, equality. All these things come from being able to have access to energy. So what our organization is involved in is the idea that we could have, and this is a very audacious and ambitious idea, because we have this idea that we could have an adult conversation in today's society. And we want to have an adult conversation on energy. What we've noticed about this is that it's been too long that we've been comparing the benefits of one kind of energy to the impacts of another. And in an adult conversation, we don't do that. In an adult conversation, we recognize that alternative energy, and thankfully just recently Michael Moore has recognized that alternative energy actually has very serious and large impacts, which is not to say the benefits in many cases aren't bigger than those impacts, just that there are costs, benefits and impacts to that energy choice, just like there are benefits to oil and gas, truly miraculous benefits to oil and gas, and all we've been talking about are the impacts. So we just want to have that conversation comparing costs and benefits of all of our energy choices, put the right energy in the right place, have a better balanced energy diet, but really have that as an adult conversation. Now, I was glad for Andrew's topic, because one of the challenges that we have at Modern Miracle Network is being able to have an adult conversation in today's society, and with the cancel culture and all the other things. And Andrew talked about the fact that it's all going to come through the culture. And one of the things that we've been noticing as we work on this conversation is just the difficulty of facts. Like, how do we have an adult conversation when we talk about costs and benefits? Because that means you're going to start talking about facts. And I just pulled a quote from a really great essay from Yuri Bezmenov. The title of his essay was "Useful Idiots," and it comes out of the Soviet experience. And the quote is, "A person who is demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I show him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, he will refuse to believe it." And what it made me realize, as we have this conversation about energy in Alberta and in Canada, that we're struggling to get these facts through. And when I look at our opponents, I realize it's because they're working to demoralize and polarize us, and that's making these facts transparent to people. And just as a digression on this point, I did, a long time ago, read this study about, and it was just about exercise, people's personal strength and lifting weights. So I'll make it the example of, we're doing a bench press, and they say, okay, well, before you do this bench press, I want you to think of that time when you were a kid where your mom and dad were so proud of you, you had just done so well on that test, or you just learned some new thing, and go and lift that weight. Well, it turns out they could lift quite a lot of weight, right? They said, okay, well, now I want you to think about that time where, maybe you haven't even told your mom and dad, but that time when you just knew they'd be so ashamed of you because what you did was just so awful. Well, all of a sudden, they can't lift any weight. This is what our opponents are doing to us in today's society. They're calling us a racist society. They're calling us a society that destroys the planet. They're demoralizing us and polarizing us, and we can't lift the weight of those facts. Right? And what I want relative to reinvigorating And so many people in the conservative movement are feeling more demoralized than ever as you see what's happening around us with media and so on and so forth. And so one thing through Modern Miracle that we're talking about our group, and there's many of you who are in this room, is we have to reinvigorate ourselves. And we have to reinvigorate ourselves by talking to the culture. We have to talk about what makes us proud. What are those moments that we feel good about being Canadian? What are those things about being Canadian that makes us feel great? Because otherwise we can't lift those facts either. And so one of the messages is for all of us to think about, as we talk about the future of Alberta too, that we don't unintentionally bring ourselves down into those discussions in a way that further demoralizes us, that further polarizes us, but instead to remind ourselves of the great things we feel about being Canadian. That while we do have racism in this society, we are still one of the least racist societies in the world, and maybe this is an opportunity to do the one thing that's left for us, which is what's happening with our First Nations. This is a shame for our society. Let's fix it. And let's use the strength of our culture to do that. It's an opportunity, not something to argue about. We're not as bad as you think you are. We're not destroying the planet. We're the best in the world at resources. Let's talk about our strengths as Canadians, about how we can help save the planet, and let's talk about what makes us great as Canadians to do that. And then I'll just quickly shift a little bit to the topic that was talking yesterday on autonomy. Somebody asked the question of somebody, where's the line that you draw? And I'll tell you, for me, my personal line is I draw the line at when the federal government starts to offer Alberta money to transition us to the way of life they'd like for us. That's where I draw the line. If we ever transition off ranching, farming, oil and gas in Alberta, it'll be a decision made by Albertans. We will decide our way of life here, and that's where I draw my line. But in that conversation, I'd like us to think about, let's do that by speaking to Alberta values, the Alberta state of mind, what makes us a strong society, and let's talk to what Andrew talked about. How do we create that culture that we can have the strength to lift those facts with? So with that, je travaille au Québec. J'ai un projet de faire au Québec et c'est mon plaisir de vous présenter mon bon ami de Québec. So my good friend Germaine Bellil. I only did that to show that you can start French lessons at 54 and still speak French better than any of our leaders that are running right now. So Germaine is an interesting, very interesting guy, and I have a lot of friends in Quebec, and I've also learned a lot about how Quebec was able to exercise power. And it wasn't just that we threatened to separate. It was Quebec put in all the institutions so that they could actually manage their own society. They ran their own pensions. They had their own police force. When they said that we might separate, people looked and said, "Yeah, you guys really could do it because you're already running your own province. We're sitting here in Alberta. Why would we think anybody's going to take us seriously at all? We can't even manage our own money." Right? So I think we have to think about some lessons from Quebec about if you're going to threaten separation, start by being actually able to do it or nobody. Now you're like the kids say, "Mom, if you don't let me stay till 9, I'm going to run away." Well, here's your bags, They don't take you seriously, right? Anyways, so I think some interesting things about Quebec. We all have a view of the culture of Quebec, and we all, those people take equal legend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's an oxymoron. A libertarian economist from Montreal, right? But yet it exists here in the real world, Germaine Bazile. And we shouldn't be too surprised because everybody in Quebec thinks we're a bunch of redneck ranchers, or as Andrew would say, redneck salad dressing. And but if that's true, how do you explain Nenshi and Notley? I mean, we're a complicated cosmopolitan society. And Quebec is too. There's a lot of conservatives there, otherwise I would have no friends. So the other thing about Germaine Bazile that was interesting, he was born in Chicago. Can you believe that? I won't tell him what year. He also wrote a book, Think Twice About Going Into More Debt. He wrote it in 2010, it's too late. He worked for Montreal Economic Institute. We're big sponsors and supporters of Montreal Economic Institute at Modern Miracle Network. He's also written on natural gas and the importance of developing that in Quebec. Here's another bit of an oxymoron, I thought. See, he co-authored a bestseller, Principles of Micro and Macroeconomics. It was a bestseller economics textbook. Who knew that was possible? But he did. And so with that, I just want to bring on stage somebody who is really a bon ami de la liberté, Germain Brazil. Thank you.